I am Anna Seawald, and this is Authentic Parenting, a podcast about personal development in the context of parenting, where I explore how you can find more calm, connection, and joy in parenting through the process of self-discovery and inner growth with a trauma-informed lens. This is a recording of an impromptu Instagram Live I did with my dear friend and colleague, occasional co-host here on the podcast, Dr. Laura Froyen. I thought it would be a good idea to share it with you. We spoke about what it means to have real influence over our kids. What's the difference between control and influence? The real reason why our kids don't listen to us, and how on earth can we get our children to willingly cooperate without yelling, threats, rewards, and punishments. Also, how can we cultivate more self-love and compassion by looking at our own unworthiness and shame stories? How do these stories show up in our parenting? I would love to know how this conversation lands on you, so that means I want to hear from you. You can send me a note to the email info@authenticparenting.com. You can leave a voicemail, and yes, I do prefer a voicemail, to the number 732-763-2576. And for international listeners, you can use the free SpeakPipe tool on the contact page of my website, authenticparenting.com/contact. Another place to connect with us is Instagram. Both Laura and I are very active there. My handle is authentic.parenting.podcast. And Laura, I believe, I will have a link in the show notes, is Dr. Laura Froyen. If you find the podcast helpful and enjoy the content, I would appreciate if you could take a quick second to rate and review it on Apple Podcasts. I have to clarify one thing, however. When you rate and review it, it goes towards the entire show, not a single episode. And you do not need to rate each individual episode every time. There is no such option. If you have a strong opinion about a guest or a topic, if you want to express your thoughts, your comments, your feedback, we have a place for that. The Authentic Parenting Community, a tight-knit, positive, and supportive space on Facebook. I hope you'll join us there. Some of our past guests are there too. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your continued listenership and support. It means a lot. Enjoy.
Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Laura Froyen, and I am joining Anna on her Instagram page. Thanks for having me here with you.
Thank you for joining me, Laura. I'm glad to see you.
Thank you so much. So the reason I wanted to jump on with you, Anna, and just talk with your parents and your listeners just a little bit, is because I've been working on this workshop training that is coming up tomorrow. And I've been thinking a lot about some of the conversations we've had on the podcast. And so the workshop is called The Real Reason Why Your Kids Don't Listen. And in it, we talk a lot about what gets in the way of getting our kids to collaborate with us, getting our kids cooperation. But really the heart of the matter comes down to, do we want to control our kids or do we want to influence them? And I just wanted to hop on and talk about that a little bit with you today. You're one of the people that I admire so much in the parenting world. And I kind of wanted to just, riff with you a little bit on the topic.
Yes. Many years ago, I had wrote a quote that people turned into a meme, and it's circulating the social media world. And I just mentioned that sentence in a conversation, I think. And it was this: when we control our children, we lose our influence. So I think maybe that's a good place to start, to just unpack a little bit what control means, what true influence means, and how we can exercise influence as opposed to control. Because as you know, control is so easy and it's so familiar. We've been controlled, raised by traditional ways of parenting, and it's so easy when we are triggered, especially, to resort to control, right?
Yeah, absolutely. If we were raised in the obedience model is kind of what I call it. I do what I say because I said so. Don't say no to your mother. That's the obedience mindset. And most of our parents were raised in it, and we probably were too. And it's so easy to default to it, and even to just have it be this lens through which we view children and behavior in general. We just view everything through this obedience lens. That's where the phrase, like, I want my kids to listen to me, comes from. They listen. They're hearing you. They hear what you're saying. They're just not obeying you. And that's the problem so many parents have. And when we go for obedience, when we go for control, I so agree with you. We lose our power. We lose our influence. And do we really want control to be the currency with which we gain influence with our kids? I don't think very many relationships that are built on control are very healthy in the long run,
No, in the long run, they are called abusive. In the long run,
in adults,
people
for sure.
escape those.
Yeah,
in adult relationships, people avoid and escape those relationships because it doesn't feel all right. I was speaking with a friend, in fact, yesterday, who said very well that she wants to find a mate that she can feel herself in that relationship, like fully herself. She said that in her previous relationship, she felt that she was always either trying to please the other person, to change herself a little bit. She was trying to be the way that person wanted her to be, modifying her behavior, her feelings, herself, and just skewing herself, making her small and big, right? Constantly like morphing to accommodate people. And where do we learn that? In our childhoods, right? And now she says that she's really done. She just wants to find someone who can fully accept her the way she is, so she doesn't have to do any of that exhausting work to please, to accommodate, and be someone she's not.
I think it's so important that, Anna, what you're saying is that we're aware of this cycle of how these masks are built, when they're built. They're built as young children because of the way we're parented and no blame on our parents. Not like most parents are doing, most of our parents were doing the very best that they could, parenting in the way that was normal for the culture at the time, right? And so the way that we teach parenting, Anna, is counterculture. Even now, it's not mainstream, right? But it starts in childhood. And the thing is that when we get the message that our obedience, our compliance, our ability to shift and please the powerful people in our life is where we gain acceptance, where we gain love, where we get our worth from, then we build that into our self-concepts and we unknowingly pass it down to our children. And really, I think for parents, the change, if we want to show up differently with our kids. So we've recognized our parents kind of built this narrative, this model into me, and I want to show up differently with my kids or with my partner. I want something different for my partner relationship or with the relationship with my kids. I think it has to come from within us too. So we can't look outside of ourselves anymore for that acceptance, that unconditional love. That starts within us. We have to be unconditionally accepting and unconditionally compassionate with ourselves too, if we want to offer that to other people and if we want to be open to receiving that from other people. I don't know what you think about that.
I think you're hitting it right in the head. That I think that's what it takes. It takes as I explained now, as I'm learning and growing and interviewing people on the podcast and reading, right, being engrossed in this work myself and working with people, I'm learning that it's like this 3-tier process. The first one is knowing yourself, right? In order to accept yourself, you have to know yourself, right? You can't just accept something you don't know. So I feel like the first tier is knowing yourself, and that means what is your attachment history? What is your upbringing? What was it like? What was your trauma history? What are your communication patterns, your conflict resolution patterns, and all of that, knowing who you are, the whole complete package. And then the second part would be learning and starting to accept yourself, all parts of yourself, the broken parts, the flawed parts, all of your parts, because it's a very painful process. It may not be a pretty process. It may be an arduous journey. But once you start learning who you truly are and accepting all parts of yourself, then you can learn to love yourself. I feel like that self-love that we talk about comes later, once we start to accept ourselves, forgive ourselves for the mistakes and the things that we got into, such as, addiction or abusive relationships. People can blame themselves for their own life choices and things like that. So once you learn to accept yourself fully, then you can love yourself. Because if you are not able to accept all parts of yourself, how can you then love all parts of yourself? And if you are not fully loving yourself, how can you then accept the love, the understanding, the compassion that someone else is willing to give it to you? You're going to reject because it's going to be a foreign language. And by doing this 3-tier process, and forgive me if it sounds complicated, then we're able to accept and love our children fully for who they are, because our children are already whole and complete and authentic. And it's us, right?
It's always
that
us.
If we haven't it's always us. If we haven't resolved this process within ourselves, it's hard for us to see our children as separate human beings.
Absolutely.
Right? And then we resort to control because that's all we know. And it's easy to control other people. But let's just face it, control is a myth. We can't even control ourselves.
I so agree.
Right?
And I think it too, so often, like, it has to start with us, because so often the pieces of our kids that trigger us, that make us the maddest, that are most frustrating to us, are the parts of our kids that remind us of ourselves. Those parts of our children that get under our skin, that push our buttons, I almost all the time with the parents that I work with, those parts are the parts that they don't accept about themselves, that they were punished for, that they were shamed for, and that they hide and that they dislike about themselves. So again, it all starts with us. It all starts with awareness. Yes, I love that 3-step process. I have a pathway that I take my parents on too, that involves really critically examining your default, where the stories are, where they came from. You have to know where you're starting in order to know how to get where you want to go if you're looking to change your parenting, Yeah,
yes. I think most often what I encounter in working with people, speaking with people, is we are stuck in our own shame stories, in our own unworthiness stories. Deep down, most people feel unworthy, shameful, and so they have developed, because of that, coping mechanisms, lifestyle choices, and ways to live their life, to mask, to cover, in order not to feel the unworthiness. And when we bring that to parenting, it can look like overperforming. You view parenting, unconsciously, of course, as a performance. You start to measure your worth by how your children are doing, behaving, achieving. And naturally, you want to control that because it feels good to control, because then you know how well you're doing as a parent. But deep down, is that emptiness, that sense of unworthiness that we try to fulfill to feel better, right? When we are performing. And so what I think it takes courage to look inside and see where our shame stories come from, where our unworthiness comes from, and learn about it, become intimately acquainted with it. It's painful, it's vulnerable, it's the most vulnerable part of ourselves, that shame, that unworthiness. And when we dig deep and uncover and learn to accept, I think that's where the true healing starts.
I agree. And if we want to have authentic connection with our kids, we have to, that has to come from a healed, or at least a healing place within us, a place that is unconditionally accepting and open and able to be vulnerable, able to be accepting of our children's unconditional love, and able to be freely giving of our unconditional love too. And I think that connection is where we get influence with our kids. It's the relationship that gives us influence, right?
Yes. Well, and again, it begins with the connection to ourselves. If and when we're comfortable with ourselves, then we can give it to other people because we know how it feels. And then we can truly influence our children. Do you want us to take an example and show how true influence can look like a strategy perhaps, or deconstruct some example?
Yeah.
I think it would be helpful to give a how-to tips to the listener.
Yeah. So Do you have an example? Yeah.
Right.
Good.
I have an example.
Yes.
I do. I mean, I'm full of examples, right? I'm a full-time parent, so there is a lot of examples in my life. So I can give an example if you don't mind. Well, my child is 12. So she has been living her dirty clothes. We have a big tub. Nobody uses this big tub. When she takes a shower, when she changes her clothes, she sort of throws the dirty clothes instead of putting it in the laundry hamper. Well, first of all, she uses our shower instead of hers. So she's far away from her hamper. So naturally, she's been using this tub as a hamper. And I don't like that, right? The clothes are piling up. Then I have been picking them up and putting in a hamper and doing the laundry. And I'm like, wait a minute. I don't like this situation. I think I have to change this. And of course, I didn't do that the first time. I started by raising my voice, maybe saying things like, you never pick up after yourself. I am tired of picking up after yourself. Like the traditional, normal way we try to coerce our children, make them do things, right? The control way, the unhealthy ways of doing it. So after I exhausted the unhealthy patterns, I said, okay, I think I have to do this, quote unquote, a different way. And so I said, come over here. I want to speak with you. And minded that this takes a little bit of consciousness, a little bit of effort, and a little bit of patience to do it this way. So I said, come over here. I want to speak with you and I want to show you something. And I showed her the tub and I said, I really don't like this situation here. The clothes are piling up. I clean and I like order. I spoke from my own need, that it's not about her. I'm not blaming her. I'm not judging or criticizing her or putting her down. I'm speaking from my need of having an orderly bathroom. And I need appreciation for the hard work that I put into maintaining a nice, clean household. And I said, I would really appreciate your cooperation on this. It seems like the clothes are piling up. They annoy me. I don't like it. And I don't want to pick them up for you. I said, can we figure out a deal here? She said, well, you can put the hamper in this bathroom. I said, whoa, no, I don't want to visually put the hamper here. The hamper is wherever it belongs. I said, that doesn't sound like it's going to work. Is there anything else? So I'm inviting her to this brainstorming process And she came up with another idea. She said, well, maybe every morning I can pick them up and put them in a hamper. And, I thought about it and I said, good. It sounds like a good deal, right? Maybe it's not fully pleasing me because I want the clothes out of the tub right now. But I honored my child's participation and the willingness to cooperate. And she came up with an idea that she's okay with. So I honored her sense of autonomy. My need is met, not in a foolish, controlled way, right? But she is eager, willing to participate and collaborate. And she's been doing that. Once in a while, she forgets. And I remind her, I said, well, I see the clothes are still there. She's like, okay, I'll do it in the morning. And she's been collaborating.
Yeah.
So to me, that's true influence. As opposed to control, inviting the child to participate, to take responsibility, to negotiate with us, to come up with a workable situation. And I think
that's a great example. I think
what do you think?
It clearly illustrates kind of how it doesn't work to just come from this top-down, do what I say place, versus coming alongside them, letting them in, being a little bit vulnerable, letting them understand where you're coming from and working to understand their perspective. All of those things are conscious communication tools that we don't usually learn growing up. We have to learn and practice them now as adults, if we want to be able to do it. But those conscious communication tools foster connection. And when she feels heard and understood, she wants to reciprocate because she feels connected to you. She feels like you love her and accept her. And she's willing to be more flexible and work with you to find a solution. Like, that's what it's all about, right? Yeah, we had a situation come up last night where I really saw this play out. The girls were unloading the dishwasher and my youngest was doing something with one of the dishes. She was putting it over her mouth, which my older one, who is a little on the anxious side, has been more concerned about germs lately than, she was really worried about, like, now you put it over your mouth, now it's dirty. And so she was really upset and she went to go grab it away from her little sister, and her little sister pushed her. Her little sister is starting to stand up to herself a little bit. And my husband got in the middle, and separated them. And in the process, my older one got really upset. And my husband was really kind of coming from this control place. And I have their permission to talk about this, but he was coming from this place of, you need to stop that right now. Someone's going to get hurt, and sometimes we do have to stop things. But afterwards, when everyone was safe, he was still coming from this place of, you didn't need to go and grab it. I was coming to get it. Like, he was really kind of coming down on her. And I just said to him, I said, okay, we hear you. She's upset. Let me just connect with her for a little bit. And I took her into her own room. I comforted her. I heard her side of the story. I helped her feel heard and validated. And once she had been heard and validated, she was able to say, I probably should have come and gotten you or daddy to help me with Evie instead of just trying to take it away. She came to that conclusion on her own. She didn't need us to force her to admit she was wrong in the moment. Kids are humans too, right? They need to save face. They need to feel heard and understood before they can admit that they're wrong, that they made a mistake, and before they're willing to think about, like, what I could do differently next time. All of us, all humans, learn best when we are heard and validated and given the opportunity to be vulnerable, because learning you're wrong and learning to do something new is a vulnerable thing,
And also, I talk about a lot honoring children's autonomy, that need for autonomy, that sense of autonomy. For example, my child started camp, and the control part would be for me to see, how is she packing her bag? Is she putting all the necessary things? Does she have a mask? Does she have a second mask? Trying to get in there and control the whole process. But what am I trying to teach if I pack the bag, if I pack extra mask, if I pack a snack, if I do everything, then what is she going to learn?
What is she
learning?
Yeah,
yes.
What does she learn?
But my goal is to raise a self-sufficient, self-responsible person. So I asked her, have you packed your bag? She said yes. And here is a good point that we can use the strategy of questions. You can trust your child that they did pack the bag. And if they didn't pack all the necessary things that they need for an activity, for a camp, or for whatever, then they're going to face the consequence of not having a snack, of not having a water bottle, or missing a towel if they went swimming, right? So they can learn next time. And see, this is what happened in our household just the other day. I said, do you think it's wise to pack like another mask? She said, yeah, I think so, because it may break. Somebody may not have a mask. It's good to have an extra mask. So I asked her, instead of saying, take an extra mask, you may need it. Because if I come from that controlling place, she may disobey, because it's not about that she doesn't understand the fact that she needs an extra mask. She wants to defy me because I'm trying to control her, right? It doesn't feel all right. Yes.
Right. All humans have a biological drive towards autonomy.
Yes.
Right? When we think about attachment relationships, it's all about autonomy and relatedness. That's where healthy relationships are, is in that balance between autonomy and relatedness. And if we go towards obedience, towards control, towards stripping away autonomy of our children, they are going to push back. We are inviting them in to a power struggle that's unnecessary, that we don't need to have with our kids, and that serves to disconnect us. Right? So when we try to take away autonomy, we also take away relatedness.
Yes. So in this situation, when packing the bag, I also asked my daughter, do you think you need like flip-flops when you come out of the pool? Don't you think you need that? No, mommy. I said, how about a plastic bag for your wet clothes? I'm not forcing, I'm suggesting, very well knowing that these are useful items. So she said, no, I don't think I need it. And sure enough, the next day she came and she said, Mommy, you're so smart, Mommy. I should have listened to you. I said, why? She's like, my whole bag is wet because of my wet clothes got into my bag. I should have taken flip-flops. I should have done this. And I said, it's okay. You can do the next day. And so I gave her this opportunity to learn. For me, that was a bigger, important thing than having control in that moment, to feel good about myself that I am sending my child to camp, with everything. And I feel like I am a good mother because she has everything on the checklist. She has a snack, she has this, she has that, she has a double mask, And no, it's not about me. Yeah. It's about my daughter learning a life lesson here. And being responsible and exercising her sense of autonomy. I think having this picture, our gaze on the larger picture of parenting, is always an important thing. What am I trying to achieve here? Am I trying to perform to earn points as a quote unquote good mom? Because if I know that I'm a good mom deep inside and I believe in that, then I don't have to do those things to make me feel like I'm a good mom, to perform. Because that I'm a good mom has to be this unshakable core thing inside of me. But unfortunately, we get doubts, right? We get doubtful. We second guess our choices because of public criticism, because how people can view us. And like I said, the unworthiness stories, the shame stories, the old patterns, the programming gets in the way too.
Yes, everything you're talking about is so important. And this, I think having a community, having a support system where people who are like-minded, who are supporting you in parenting in this way that's a little bit counterculture, a little bit different than how the mainstream is doing it, is also so important. So I would love to invite people who are watching this to, if you want to dig a little bit deeper into kind of, okay, so how do I start making these changes? How do I move away from a control or obedience mindset and into more connected, authentic, respectful parenting? I would love to have you guys come to this workshop that I'm having tomorrow. If you click on my profile, you can just click on the link in my bio and get registered, or you can go to laurafroyen.com/respect and get registered. If you can't make it live, it's at 11 o'clock Central Time. If you can't make it live, there's a replay. And so you'll be able to catch the replay. But I would love to have all your listeners there. I love teaching this stuff. It's so much fun for me. And I really do love getting to talk with Anna about it.
Great. Me too. I will have that link also available.
Thanks, Anna.
on Instagram, and I'll post it in our Facebook community.
Oh, good. Anna, I think it's so much fun talking with you about this stuff. I love our conversations. Thank you so much for being willing to have me on here with you.
Thank you, as always. My pleasure. And I enjoy the conversations as well. And I hope it was helpful for the listener or the viewer. I don't know what it's called.
the viewers, and hopefully if we put this into a podcast, then listeners too.
Yes. Great. Well, thank you,
Good.
Laura. Have a great rest of the day and good luck tomorrow with the workshop.
Oh, thank you so much, Anna. I really appreciate it.